Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the McKinney MPB79 4.5 by 4.5. This is a ball bearing hinge by McKinney, their Mac Pro. This is going to be certainly an imported hinge that is going to be used in those instances where cost is absolutely the primary point, still being a very excellent quality hinge, no doubt. McKinney Mac Pro, they call this. This is a full mortise. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves there, here, and here, that they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame when the door is hung, okay, so that you maintain that standard margin between the two leaves. This is a 5-knuckle hinge. You can see why we call it a 5-knuckle hinge. This is recommended for standard weight doors. This is a commercial grade hinge. This is a standard weight hinge. In a 4.5 inch tall, you're going to be dealing with a hinge leaf that's 134 thousandths of an inch thick, and that's considered standard weight. I would also think of it as standard duty as well. Let's put the caliper on that hinge and see if it measures 134 thousandths. Caliper tells me 0.135, so yeah, very accurate. 134 thousandths, standard weight, standard duty. There is a heavyweight version. Probably be, I don't know that this is the part number, but it's probably an MPB78 would be my guess. That would be a 4.5 inch size, would be 180 thousandths. Would also give you 2 additional bearing packets so that there would ultimately be 4. But this is a steel-based hinge, and it is 26D or 652, it could be known as, satin chrome over steel. This is available in prime coat and satin chrome. This is going to include all machine screws and all wood screws, which is nice. Okay. There is a link below this video. This is also a non-removable pin hinge. That is not what was ordered, but since we have the NRP version here, non-removable pin, that little set screw that I just showed to you, you cannot see it from the outside. Only when the door is open would you ever be able to see that. That term non-removable pin doesn't mean that you cannot remove it. It just means that it is set to be non-removable when the hinge is put in its secured condition. You can literally count on not being able to drive that pin out from the outside. Little hole there, standard pin. You can count on not driving that out. I've tried. It's not coming out. A non-removable pin is, of course, removable. When you loosen that set screw, you can then easily, of course, naturally drive the pin out. You might want to separate the leaves when you're hanging doors and frames, or hanging doors into frames. Bring the leaves together, tap your pin down, and then set your set screw. There's a groove that's been cut in the side of that pin. If this is the groove that's cut, when that set screw gets set, it'll nest in there, preventing you from removing that pin. And you would use that in an exterior door that swings out. Or an interior door that swings into a space. You might have a secure documents room, interior application completely. Or it might be a pharmacy closet in a hospital. You would certainly, even though that's an interior door, you would certainly want to create an environment by which the pin could not be removed in a pull-side application. To the screws for a moment, it's nice to be able to hear from you when you're ordering the material. By all means, indicate in the comment field the screws that you would like to have included. It's not to be taken for granted that you'll get all machine screws and all wood screws. That's not the norm for every manufacturer. So always indicate, there'll be manufacturers that will send all machine screws and then only half wood screws, because a 4.5, in our commercial door industry, that's a steel door and a steel frame, or it's a wood door and a steel frame. But it's not that often a wood frame and a wood door. So it really helps when you define what you're expecting in terms of the screws, so that we can ensure that the factory understands what you're looking for. and then proceed accordingly. There is a link below this video to a document called template. That's really more of a cut sheet. There is not a template necessarily provided there. Let's see. There's a link to the cut sheet. Okay, so we've got by the time you're seeing this video, that will be corrected and flipped around. So our template, which you will see as template, is going to give you the dimensional properties of the hinge, specifically the location of the holes. So if you're unsure if this is going to match an existing, take that template and confirm before you order it. This is what's called the template pattern. So the term template can mean, as a noun, a technical drawing. It could also be, the word template can refer to a standardization of the location of hinge screw holes as defined by the industry. This would be an ANSI, American National Standards Institute, fixed location of the screw holes that we would term the template pattern. You could have a hinge from, I believe the template pattern was defined around 1970. You look at some hinges that are from the 1950s, they're not going to be in a template pattern. In fact, I've seen old hinges that the pattern was exactly reversed. Okay? You get into large hinges, 6-inch tall hinges, 7-inch tall, 8-inch tall. You're going to have the rules broken, where they're going to the manufacturer will put screw holes. But when it comes to a 4.5-inch, a 5-inch, a 4-inch, a 3.5-inch, where we're calling it template pattern, whether you're the Acme company or the XYZ company or you're the third company I can't think of a name for, a fictitious name, if you're looking at their template pattern, it will all and always be these exact locations. So that's very handy there. Then the cut sheet, we can take a look at the cut sheet. That is going to be a review of what this hinge is. You can do an MP79, that's a plain bearing, or you can do an MPB, a ball bearing version of it. You don't have a lot of options. This is just their, this would be McKinney's imported hinge that is going to be intended to address the need in the marketplace to bring to the established McKinney client base a hinge that will compete with these offshore imports. And that's what this is. But you can't be selling $12 hinges when everyone else can buy an $8 hinge. I'm sure McKinney used that as the reason to bring in a Mac Pro line of hinges at some point. 4.5 by 4.5 and 4.5 by 4 are the two sizes listed there. The height is the first dimension. That is to be committed to memory. The height is the first dimension on a hinge. The width is always the second dimension. If this was a 4.5 by 4, it would be 4.5 by 4. The width is measured when the leaf is laid open in front of you. Okay. It matters to know the height is the first dimension because what if you were dealing with a 5 by 8? Or a 4 by 3.5, or a 4.5 by 4. 4.5 by 4 is actually a very common hinge, and it is underutilized because in lots of instances, especially those knockdown hollow metal drywall frames that wrap over a partition wall, you've got that hinge knuckle hanging off there. Okay, a 4.5 by 4.5 is really too much hinge. You can really draw that hinge at a 1/4 inch closer to the face of the jamb. It will not only support the weight of the door better by having the vertical axis of pivoting towards or a little bit closer to the mass of the door, but it's also less projecting hardware. And if you were walking down a hallway with that sort of knockdown hollow metal drywall frame over partition walls, and you stare at the projection of the hinge, you say to yourself, yes, that is excessive. So a 4.5 by 4 is a preferred hinge in lots of applications where it's thoroughly unnecessary to have the vertical axis of pivoting kicked off far away like you would need if you needed to clear a wall condition or you were doing a wide throw hinge. That sort of scenario. So keep the 4.5 by 4 in your mind because it's a great option in lots of instances, and it is an underutilized size. Now in the aluminum storefront industry, that is exactly that sort of application where you have a frame that's flush with the end of the wall and there's no application to the wall that would require the door to swing out and get around, 4.5 by 4 is going to be the standard, because you don't need to have a 4.5 inch wide hinge. And while it's only a 1/4 inch, it's actually quite substantial, and it would be considered best practice to have a 4.5 by 4 in those applications. Now there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the McKinney products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. The name McKinney is synonymous with hinges and other products like continuous aluminum geared hinges. There is also on that manufacturer's page an archival catalog. McKinney has been a company for probably 100 years. We've got a very old catalog that shows what McKinney did once upon a time. And like all manufacturers of hardware that exist today that have a long lineage, very few of them have not evolved away from what they used to do into this very different area of stuff, or at least they're now primarily known as a company that does something else other than what was in these old catalogs. You might find it interesting to look at that old catalog that's there. If you have any questions on the Mac Pro MPB79 4.5 and a satin chrome finish, or any other McKinney product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.